Welcome, adventurers, to the shadowed wilds of Azeroth. Today, we dive into part 2 of the Witherbark Trolls saga. The Cataclysm shatters their hinterland strongholds, driving them from their sacred lands. As the Legion's flames engulf the world, they strike at Stromgarde in a desperate bid for vengeance, only to face the Ebon Blade's wrath. From lost temples to bloodied ruins, their defiance burns on. Join us to uncover their collapse and resilience. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more World of Warcraft lore deep dives. Let's tread the broken wilds and begin. Cataclysm. The Cataclysm and its impact on the Witherbark. The Cataclysm, occurring 28 years after the Dark Portal was opened, was a global disaster that altered Azeroth's geography and political landscape. Earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions reshaped the regions like the Hinterlands and Arathi Highlands, disrupting ecosystems and settlements. Where the Witherbark trolls, who relied on the dense forests and rugged terrain of the Hinterlands for their way of life, these changes destabilized their strongholds, making them more vulnerable to external threats. The Cataclysm also emboldened factions like the Forsaken, the undead faction of the Horde led by Sylvanas Windrunner, who sought to expand their influence in the Eastern Kingdoms. The Witherbark's expulsion from the Hinterlands by the Forsaken reflects the power struggles in the region. The Forsaken, known for their ruthless tactics and use of plague-based warfare, capitalized from the chaos of the Cataclysm to assert dominance over contested territories. The Witherbark, already weakened by years of conflict with their Reventusk trolls, Wildhammer dwarves, and Horde forces, were ill-equipped to resist the aggressive expansion. The loss of their hinterland settlements marked a significant blow to the tribe's territorial and cultural identity, forcing them to retreat to their remaining holdings in the Arathi Highlands. Displacement from the Hinterlands. The Witherbark's complete disappearance from the Hinterlands by 28 years after the Dark Portal underscores the scale of their defeat. Their key settlements, Hiri'watha Village, Zun'watha Ruins, and the Temple of Shadra'Alor, fell to enemy forces and were abandoned, signaling the tribe's inability to maintain their footholdings in the region. Each settlement's fate provided insight on the Witherbark's decline. Hiri'watha Village, once a primary stronghold for the Witherbark, was seized by the Forsaken and repurposed into a research station. The Forsaken, known for their alchemical and necromantic experiments, saw the village's strategic location and defensible structures as ideal for their operations. Transformation of Hiri'watha into a Forsaken research station shows that the Witherbark were either killed, driven out, or captured during the takeover. The Forsaken's occupation of the village would have included fortifying it with their signature of blight-based defenses and possibly using it to conduct experiments on captured trolls and local wildlife, further desecrating a site of cultural significance for the Witherbark. Zun'watha Ruins. The Zun'watha Ruins, a site of historical and spiritual importance for the Witherbark, were abandoned following the tribe's expulsion from the Hinterlands. The ruins, which were linked to the ancient troll ancestors of the Loa, were left desolate, with only occasional sightings of Zul'arak Hatefowler, a notable Witherbark figure. Zul'arak's presence in the ruins suggests that some remnants of the tribe may still linger in the area, perhaps as stragglers or outcasts attempting to reclaim their heritage. However, his sporadic appearances indicate that the Witherbark no longer maintain an organized presence in Zun'watha, and the ruins have become a haunting reminder of their lost influence. Shadra'Alor Temple. The Temple of Shadra'Alor, dedicated to the spider Loa Shadra, was overtaken by the Vilebranch trolls, another forest troll tribe known for their brutal and fanatical practices. The Vilebranch, who also originated from the Amani Empire but followed a darker path, saw the temple as a valuable religious and strategic site. Their takeover of Shadra'Alor suggests either a direct conflict with the Witherbark or an opportunistic seizure of the abandoned sacred site. The loss of Shadra'Alor was particularly devastating for the Witherbark, as it severed their connection to one of their primary Loa and undermined their spiritual authority. The Vilebranch's control of the temple also indicates their growing dominance amongst forest trolls in their hinterlands, further marginalizing the Witherbark. Continued presence in the Arathi Highlands. Despite their expulsion from the hinterlands, the Witherbark trolls maintained a presence in the Arathi Highlands, particularly in areas such as Witherbark Village. The Arathi Highlands, a contested region with a history of conflict between trolls, humans, and the Horde, remain a stronghold for their Witherbark due to its proximity to their ancestral lands and its defensible terrain. However, their position in the Arathi Highlands was far from secure, as they faced ongoing threats from the Horde's outpost at Hammerfall and the remnants of Stromgarde's forces. The Witherbark's alliance with the Boulderfist ogres, established before the Cataclysm, continued to play a role in their efforts to hold their ground in the Arathi Highlands. This partnership, though uneasy, provided the Witherbark with additional muscle to counter Horde incursions. However, the Cataclysm's disruptions, such as changes to the landscape and increased Horde activity, strained this alliance as resources and strategic priorities shifted. The Witherbark's survival in the Arathi Highlands reflects their resilience, but their reduced territory and resources suggest a tribe struggling to maintain relevance in a rapidly changing world. Zul'arek Hatefowler and the Zun'watha Ruins. Zul'arek Hatefowler's occasional appearance in the Zun'watha Ruins are a poignant symbol of the Witherbark's decline. As a named figure, Zul'arek may be a chieftain, witch doctor, or a warrior of significance within the tribe, and his presence in the abandoned ruins suggests a personal mission to preserve Witherbark's heritage or reclaim lost glory. The name Hatefowler implies a deep-seated grudge, possibly against the Forsaken, Wildhammer dwarves, or other enemies who have wronged the tribe. His sporadic visit to Zun'watha could involve rituals to honor the Loa, attempts to rally surviving Witherbark trolls, or reconnaissance to assess the possibility of retaking the Hinterlands. The abandoned state of Zun'watha underscores the Witherbark's loss of cohesion. Without a stable population or resources to maintain the ruins, Zul'arek's presence is likely that of a lone figure or small band, unable to restore the site's former significance. His actions reflect the broader tragedy of the Witherbark, a once proud tribe reduced to clinging to the remnants of their past, with little hope of reclaiming their former strength. Expanded insight and cultural implications. The Witherbark's expulsion from the Hinterlands and their retreat to the Arathi Highlands highlight the broader challenges faced by the forest troll tribes in the post-Cataclysm era. The Forsaken's aggressive expansion, fueled by Sylvanas' ambition to secure Lordaeron for the Horde, represents a new era of warfare that the Witherbark are unprepared to counter. The Forsaken's use of plague and necromantic tactics have been particularly devastating against the Witherbark's traditional guerrilla warfare, which relied on mobility and knowledge of the terrain. The takeover of Shadra'Alor by the Vilebranch trolls further illustrates the shifted power dynamics among the forest troll tribes. The Vilebranch, known for their extreme devotion to dark Loas and the willingness to embrace blood magic, likely outmaneuvered the Witherbark through sheer ruthlessness or opportunism. This loss severed the Witherbark's connection to Shadra, a central figure in their spiritual practices, and may have caused internal strife or a crisis of faith within the tribe. The Witherbark's previous alliances, such as their brief partnership with the Horde, their deal with the Boulderfist ogres, and their alliance to Hakar the Soul Player, demonstrate a pattern of pragmatic but ultimately self-destructive decisions. Their betrayal of Thrall and involvement with Hakar's cult likely alienated potential allies, leaving them vulnerable to the Forsaken's onslaught. The Cataclysm, by destabilizing their territory and empowering their enemies, accelerated their decline. Legacy in Azeroth. By 28 years after the opening of the Dark Portal, the Witherbark tribe's story is one of survival against overwhelming odds. Their expulsion from the Hinterlands marks a low point in their history, reducing them to a shadow of their former selves. In Azeroth, adventurers encounter the Witherbark primarily in the Arathi Highlands, where they remain hostile to anyone that enters, defending their remaining territory with ferocity. Tasks in the region often involve combating Witherbark trolls alongside Boulderfist ogres, reflecting their ongoing resistance to the Horde presence at Hammerfall. Zul'arek Hatefowler's appearance in the Zun'watha Ruins adds a layer of poignancy to the Witherbark's narrative, portraying them as a tribe clinging to their past while facing an uncertain future. The loss of Hiri'watha and Shadra'Alor to the Forsaken and Vilebranch respectively underscore the erosion of their culture and spiritual identity. Yet, their persistence in the Arathi Highlands suggests a stubborn refusal to be eradicated entirely, embodying the resilience that has defined most forest troll tribes for millennia. In the broader context of Azeroth, the Witherbark's fate serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of isolationism and opportunism. Their inability to form lasting alliances, coupled with the Cataclysm's devastating impact, left them vulnerable to more organized and ruthless factions. As Azeroth continues to evolve, the Witherbark trolls remain a diminished but defiant presence in their area. Their story a testament to the enduring struggle of forest trolls in a world that has largely passed them by. Legion. The Legion's third invasion and Stromgarde's fall. The third invasion of the Burning Legion, beginning in 32 years after the Dark Portal opening, was a cataclysmic event that threatened all of Azeroth. Demonic forces poured through portals, attacking key regions and forcing the Alliance and Horde to unite against a common enemy. The chaos of the invasion destabilized already fragile regions like the Arathi Highlands, where the human kingdom of Stromgarde had long been a contested stronghold. Stromgarde, once a proud bastion of the Arathi people, had fallen into disrepair following years of war, political instability, and raids by trolls, ogres, and the Forsaken. During that same time period, Stromgarde was seized by Galen Trollbane, a fallen prince of the Trollbane dynasty, who had been raised as an undead by the Forsaken. Galen's return to Stromgarde was part of a broader power play, orchestrated by Sylvanas Windrunner to reclaim the city for the Forsaken and establish it as a strategic stronghold in the Arathi Highlands. Galen's undead state and leadership made him a polarizing figure, as he sought to restore Stromgarde's glory, while serving Forsaken interests. Great tensions with both the living remnants of Stromgarde's population and neighboring factions like the Witherbark trolls. The Witherbark, still entrenched in the Arathi Highlands after their expulsion from the Hinterlands, saw Stromgarde's weakened state and Galen's takeover as an opportunity to strike at their long-standing enemies. The Arathi Highlands remained a contested region, with the Witherbark's primary settlement, Witherbark Village, serving as a base for raids against human and Horde forces. The Legion's invasion, while a global threat, distracted the Alliance and Horde, giving the Witherbark a window to pursue their vendetta against Stromgarde. The Witherbark attack on Stromgarde. Under the leadership of Ojin'ba, a prominent Witherbark figure, a chieftain or warlord, the tribe launched a bold assault on Stromgarde. The choice to attack the city reflects the Witherbark's deep-seated hatred for Stromgarde, rooted in centuries of territorial disputes and cultural animosity dating back to the Troll Wars. Ojin'ba's leadership suggests a unified effort to capitalize on Stromgarde's instability, aiming to seize the city and disrupt Galen's rule, as well as reclaim territory they viewed as rightfully theirs. The Witherbark trolls targeted the mage district of Stromgarde, a strategic choice given its defensible position and historical significance. The mage district was home to arcane sanctums and remnants of Stromgarde's magical defenses, offered a fortified area where the trolls could entrench themselves. By holing up in this district, the Witherbark intended to use it as a base to launch further attacks onto the city, leveraging their guerrilla tactics and knowledge of urban combat. The attack may have involved Witherbark warriors, witch doctors, and possibly their Boulder Fist Ogre allies, given their prior collaboration in the Arathi Highlands. Ojin'ba's decision to lead this assault indicates a high-stake gamble. The Witherbark, already weakened by their losses in the Hinterlands and the ongoing conflicts with the Horde's Hammerfall outpost, lacked the resources for prolonged siege. The attack on Stromgarde would have been driven by desperation, a desire to reassert their power, and a belief that Galen's undead forces were vulnerable. However, the move underestimated the broader dynamics of the Legion's invasion, which brought new players, such as the Ebon Blade, into the region. The Ebon Blade's intervention. The Death Knights of the Ebon Blade, a neutral order of undead warriors led by the Lich King's former champions, became a decisive factor in the Witherbark's defeat. The Ebon Blade, based in Ocarus, the Ebon Hold, were active during the Legion's invasion, seeking to combat the demonic threat and protect Azeroth's interests, often through pragmatic and morally ambiguous means. Their involvement in Stromgarde suggests a strategic alliance or deal with Galen Trollbane, likely brokered to secure the city against mutual enemies or advance the Ebon Blade's agenda. The deal between Galen and the Ebon Blade involved a mutual exchange of favors. Galen, as an undead ruler aligned with the Forsaken, may have offered the Ebon Blade resources, information, or a foothold in Stromgarde in exchange for their assistance in repelling the Witherbark. Alternatively, the Ebon Blade may have acted independently, viewing the Witherbark's occupation of the Mage District as a destabilizing factor in the Arathi Highlands during the Legion's invasion. The Death Knights, known for their ruthless efficiency and mastery of necromantic and military combat, were well suited to confront the Witherbark's guerrilla tactics. The Ebon Blade's assault on the Mage District was swift and brutal. Death Knights, wielding dark magic and rune blades, would have overwhelmed the Witherbark trolls, who relied on traditional troll weaponry, Loa-based magic, and limited ogre support. The Witherbark's entrenchment in the Mage District, while tactically sound for defense, became a trap, as the confined urban environment limited their mobility and exposed them to the Death Knight's superior firepower. Ojin'ba and his forces were killed, marking a devastating blow to the Witherbark's leadership and morale. Implications for the Witherbark tribe. The defeat in Stromgarde's mage district further weakened the Witherbark tribe, already reeling from the expulsion from the Hinterlands and ongoing conflicts with the Horde and other factions. Ojin'ba's death was a significant loss, as the leader of his stature would have been crucial for maintaining tribal cohesion and directing the military efforts. The failure of the attack on Stromgarde demoralized the tribe, reinforcing their status as a diminished force in the Arathi Highlands. The Witherbark's decision to attack Stromgarde reflects their persistent hatred towards human kingdoms, but also their strategic miscalculation. By targeting Galen's forces, they provoked a response in the Ebon Blade, a faction with no prior direct conflict with the Trolls, but one far more powerful than the Witherbark could handle. This defeat underscores the tribe's increase in desperation and inability to adapt to the shift in power dynamics of Azeroth, where traditional enemies like Stromgarde were now backed by undead and supernatural forces. Context in the Arathi Highlands. The events in Stromgarde during 32 years after the Dark Portal opening highlight the Arathi Highlands' status as a battleground for competing factions. Galen Trollbane's takeover of Stromgarde, supported by the Forsaken, intensified tensions in the region, drawn in the Witherbark, the Horde via Hammerfall, and other local powers like the Boulderfist Ogres. The Legion's invasion added further complexity, as factions were forced to balance local rivalries with the global demonic threat. The Witherbark's attack on Stromgarde can be seen as an attempt to exploit this chaos, but their failure to anticipate the Ebon Blade's involvement reflects their isolation and lack of intelligence gathering. The tribe's prior alliances with the Boulderfist Ogres, briefly with the Horde, and with the Hakar cult, had already strained their resources and reputation, leaving them ill-equipped to face a coordinated counterattack. Cultural and spiritual impact. The loss of Ojin'ba and the failed assault on Stromgarde had a profound cultural and spiritual repercussions for the Witherbark. Forest trolls, deeply tied to their Loa and ancestral traditions, often interpret defeats as a sign of divine disfavor. The tribe's earlier loss of Shadra'Alor to the Vilebranch trolls had already weakened their connection to the spider Loa, Shadra, and this new setback may have further eroded their spiritual cohesion. Witch doctors within the tribe might have conducted rituals to appease the Loa or seek guidance, but the repeated losses could have led to internal divisions or a crisis of faith. The Witherbark's persistence in the Arathi Highlands, despite these setbacks, speaks to their resilience, but also their stubborn refusal to adapt. Unlike the Reventusk trolls, who aligned with the Horde and gained protection, the Witherbark's isolationist stance left them vulnerable to more powerful factions. Their attack on Stromgarde, while bold, was a desperate bid to reclaim relevance in a region increasingly dominated by the Forsaken, the Horde, and external forces like the Ebon Blade. Legacy and aftermath. By 32 years after the Dark Portal opening, the Witherbark tribe's defeat in Stromgarde's Mage District marked another chapter in their decline. In Azeroth, the Witherbark tribe's remnants are mostly found within Witherbark Village in the Arathi Highlands, where they are both hostile to Alliance and Horde alike. Those who go to the region are often involved in fighting these trolls and their ogre allies, reflecting their continued resistance despite their weakened state. The involvement of the Ebon Blade in this conflict highlights the growing complexity in the Azeroth Wars, where traditional rivalries are complicated by new players and global threats. Galen Trollbane's rule over Stromgarde, backed by the Forsaken, further marginalized the Witherbark, while the Legion's invasion forced all factions to prioritize survival over territorial grudges. For the Witherbark, the failed attack on Stromgarde was a microcosm of their broader struggle. A once proud tribe, splintered from the Amani Empire, now reduced to fighting losing battles against overwhelming odds. The death of Ojin'ba and his forces in the Mage District serve as a poignant symbol of the Witherbark's fading power. This story, intertwined with the Arathi Highlands' turbulent history, reflects the broader tragedy of the Forest Trolls, caught between their ancient traditions and a world that has moved beyond them. There defines both their strength and their undoing. That's the tale of the Witherbark tribe's fall, from the Cataclysm's devastation to their doomed stand in Stromgarde, yet their defiance endures in the Arathi Highlands. I'm Halakton, and this is just part 2 of their saga. Subscribe to follow their fight through the Fourth War and beyond. Like, share, and comment down below. What's your favorite WoW troll moment? Until next time, see you then.